name is Paul Sonderegger. I'm a senior data strategist at Oracle. And today we're going to talk about the hidden data economy in your firm. And so let's dive right in with our first big idea, which is data capital. Data is a kind of capital. Now, this is not a metaphor. This is not like data is the new oil or data is the new gold. Data fulfills the literal economic textbook definition of capital. So unlike a natural resource, which you dig out of the ground, capital is something where you have to invest to create it. But more importantly, capital is a necessary input into other goods and services. It's what economists call a factor of production. And if you don't have that factor, you can't produce the good or service you have in mind. So for example, if you design a skyscraper, but you lack the financial capital to build it, you can't have that skyscraper. Similarly, if you design a fraud detection algorithm, but you lack the data to fuel that engine, you cannot deliver that service. Data is a kind of capital. It is an economic factor of production in digital goods and services. And that makes it one of the most important and most powerful assets on Earth. But it is a strange kind of asset. So data has a curious economic identity. Data is non-rivalrous. And this means that multiple parties can use a single data set at the same time. So unlike a tractor, which is a rivalrous resource where only one farmer can drive the tractor at a time, a single data set can fuel multiple apps, analytics, and AIs simultaneously. Data is also non-fungible. Now, what this means is that unlike true commodities, like say oil, where you don't care if you have unit A or unit B, you don't care if you put barrel A or barrel B into the refinery because they're each going to carry the same energy and therefore create the same value. Data is not like that. So with data set A, which contains, let's say, all of your customers' past transactions, and data set B, which contains all of your customers' past support calls, these two data sets, they are not substitutable for each other. One can answer questions about past transactions, the other about past support interactions, and they cannot be substituted for one another. Data is non-fungible. Data is also an experience good, and that means that you don't know what it's worth to you until after you use it. Now, other things are like this. Books and movies are also experience goods. You don't know how much you like them until you get to the end. And that's why they rely on a lot of marketing and word of mouth and recommendations in order to persuade you to pay for them. Now, data sets, especially ones inside large corporations, they don't get this kind of marketing. They don't get this kind of word of mouth advocacy, these kinds of recommendations. And as a result, a lot of data sets inside large organizations are underutilized. The value they could create lies dormant because you don't know exactly what it's worth to you until after you use it, until after you invest the time, the cost, the effort to do something with it. But none of these are the strangest thing about data as an asset. The strangest thing about data as an asset is that the vast majority of data never goes to market. It has no market price. It gets used by the same firm that creates it. Now, of course, we know that some data does get bought and sold, and there are critical privacy and security practices that must be wrapped around those interactions. But the vast majority of value created from data in the digital economy happens through use of data within the same four walls of the firm that created it. And this means that inside each large organization, whether you know it or not, is a hidden data economy. Now, in this hidden data economy, there is a supply side, and the supply side comes primarily from applications, sensors, devices that are originating observations. They are originating data that then gets stored somewhere. On the demand side are analytics and AI models that want to chew on that data to do something with it. Now, to be fair, there are also applications on the demand side that want to use data originated by another application. But by and large, the supply side comes from the growth and diversification of data being originated by applications and devices and sensors. And the demand side comes from the growth and diversification of analytics and AI that organizations are embedding in different business processes and decision points. Now, it's complicated enough that both sides are growing and diversifying, but it gets even more complicated because in every large organization, this hidden data economy takes place across multiple operating environments. So this your hidden data economy is most likely fragmented across multiple clouds. Some of it may even be in local cloud. Some of it is going to still be in on-premise environments. Now, most companies don't think of their data this way. Most companies tend to think of their data in terms of what it takes to create it, what it takes to use it, what it takes to protect it. Few companies think about their data in terms of supply, demand, and the transaction costs between the two. And as a result, for most companies, their internal data economy is hiding in plain sight. And so the question becomes how to bring your hidden data economy into the light and encourage it to grow. Well, we think there are three things that you should focus on: increasing data liquidity, data productivity, and data security. So let's look at each one of these in turn. Data liquidity is the ability to get data from its point of creation to its many points of use efficiently. And each digital observation that gets created in a particular shape. It might be a row in a table. It could be key value pairs wrapped up in a JSON object. It could be nodes and edges in a graph. There are lots of different shapes for data. And every application should be able to create data in the shape that is most convenient and fastest for it to capture the necessary data. But then every application, every analytic, every AI wants that data in a slightly different shape for its own purpose. And the key in increasing data liquidity is to turn your data into a shapeshifter, one where you can write the data down in the structure that your application prefers, but where each analytic and AI can access that data as if it were written down in the structure that each one of those points of use needs. So for example, MindSense is a company that provides services to mining operations. And the service they provide is that they put X-ray boxes on the shovels of excavators. Those X-ray boxes examine the rock as it comes out and gives a very fine, detailed picture of how much ore is in each chunk of rock, enabling those mines to capture more ore while producing less waste. Well, those X-rays, that data, then gets loaded into a converged database, a database that is multi-model, multi-tenant, multi-workload. And because that data is in a converged database, multiple points of use get access to that data as if it had been born in the shape that each one of those applications and analytics needs for its own task. By writing data in one format and then accessing it as if it had been born in a different format, MindSense is able to reduce the time, the cost, the effort to get data from its point of creation to its many points of use. Now, this idea of increasing data liquidity by decreasing the time, the cost, the effort to get data from its point of creation to its many points of use, this is just the first way to bring your hidden data economy into the light and make it grow. The next is to increase data productivity. So data productivity is all about increasing the dollar output, the euro output per data input. Now, the way to think about this is that data isn't worth anything until you do something with it. It doesn't create value until you apply it in an application or an analytic or an AI model. So what you need here is to embed more analytics, more AI models into more business processes and decision points in order to expand the number of points of use for a given data set. By marrying a foundation of increased data liquidity with a proliferation of use points to increase data productivity, you now have got the two key pieces of increasing your return on data capital. But we're not done, because the security of this environment is critical. Now, in this day and age, security means providing protections for both the observer and the observed over observations about them. As we all know, there is an increasing number of regulations governing the rights that data subjects have over observations about them. These must be honored even as data moves from its point of creation to its multiple points of use. And so comprehensive data lineage, provenance, and even profiling of data automatically, so you have a good sense of when you have a sensitive set of data, as opposed to one that does not include personally identifiable information. These kinds of tactics and capabilities are essential to providing security in a world that is far more digitized than ever before. So these are the three big ideas: increasing data liquidity, increasing data productivity, increasing data security, the three big ideas in helping you increase your return on data capital. And firms that can increase their return on data capital by using data assets, unique data assets, in more unique ways, create sustainable competitive advantage. But even this is not the big prize. The place where all of this goes next is an expansion of data trade, the buying, the selling, bartering even of data with protections for all stakeholders. Now, we're seeing early examples of this. For example, a company called Retraced has built out a blockchain service where players in the value chain for consumer goods can make available on this blockchain service documentation that shows that they use fair trade practices. That means that a consumer brand at the very end of the value chain can show that all of its suppliers and providers of raw material use fair trade practices the entire way through. This is an example of data created by a firm deep in the supply chain, creating value, not just for them because they can differentiate themselves against other providers, but also creating value by another firm, that consumer brand that is attempting to differentiate itself from other brands. So we're in the early days of data trade, which is very, very exciting. And the crucial piece is to have protections for all stakeholders in order to facilitate the value creation from data that one firm cannot do by itself. It requires the participation of multiple firms while still protecting privacy. So the thing I want to leave you with is that data is a kind of capital, an economic factor of production in digital goods and services. And the key in increasing your return on data capital is to bring your internal hidden data economy into the light by increasing data liquidity, data productivity, and data security. Thanks very much.